Folks who went before us blazed the trail through history. The heritage they left behind is part of you and me. All the dreams they still live on, and it makes me proud to be a living, breathing part of it all, the American legacy.
There, that a boy. Not too much.
Now, when I get down to the end of the field, I'll pull up the sweep?
Yeah, if you would. Yeah,
all right.
Do that. Yeah, we'll make a farmer out of you yet. Yeah, okay, when you get down there, why, just pick her up out of the ground, and then, if you will, take that pickup and go over to the combines.
All right.
I'll see you over there after a bit.
Okay.
Then, okay?
All right, I'll see you in a little while.
Okay.
If you lived on a large wheat farm like this, it wouldn't be long before you'd know how to put a variety of machinery to work, turning the soil, controlling weeds, planting seed, yes, even cutting these stalks of wheat. This is called the head of the stalk. Inside are found the small wheat kernels. These tiny bits of grain are the reason that Roland Cronk and thousands of other farmers like him spend long, hard days working this land here on the Great Plains. For wheat is the most important crop grown in this part of our country. It will usually make more money for farmers than any other crop they raise, and will even be traded for cash or needed products all over the world, from as far away as Russia or South America to Japan and Australia. In our own country, wheat kernels may end up as flour in Colorado grain mills, perhaps in a macaroni dinner served in Minnesota or Mississippi, or even in loaves of bread baked in Virginia or as far away as Hawaii. Wheat is grown in every one of the Great Plains states, from Texas north to the Dakotas, with Kansas and North Dakota being the leading producers. Most of the wheat grown in this country is called winter wheat. It's planted in the fall and harvested the following summer. The seed? Well, it's nothing more than the harvested kernels from previous wheat crops. When the kernels are placed here in this machine called a drill, the seed will automatically be planted in the soil every few inches, up and down the field. To sprout the wheat and make it grow, you need water. A great many of the farmers on the Great Plains are able to irrigate their fields with water from nearby rivers or well water from deep underground. Mr. Cronk, however, doesn't have any river close by or underground water to pump upward onto his fields. His farm is an example of what we call dryland farming. This means that he has to rely upon periodic snows or rainfall rather than irrigation as a source of water for his wheat. If Mother Nature has provided such snow and rain over the winter and spring months, then by late June or early July, Mr. Cronk's field will be full of golden grain, and the wheat will be ready to be cut. It's called a combine. Not only does it cut off the wheat stalks just inches above the ground, but it separates or thrashes the wheat kernels from the heads as the stalks pass into and through this complicated piece of machinery. 10, 12, 14 hours a day, the combines keep cutting, not even stopping while transferring the wheat into waiting trucks moving alongside. Wheat can be stored for many months, even years, without losing its value. Many times, farmers will store their wheat in huge bins until there's a greater demand for it by the companies that make it into flour and the many related food products. When the farmer decides that the market price per bushel is high enough to make his profit, he will load up his wheat and drive to the marketplace, usually a grain elevator in a nearby town or rail center. 100 years ago, going to and from market was quite a bit different. The journey was made in this kind of a vehicle. It was called a freighter wagon. This old sturdy four-wheeler served the early settlers in much the same way that the wheat truck serves the farmer of today. With a couple of good horses pulling it, the pioneer farmer could travel, about 10 miles a day, hauling his crops to the nearest town to sell, bringing back home in exchange the things that he needed, food supplies that he couldn't grow, cloth, furniture, even farm equipment. This was home. Actually, it was called a homestead. Most of them were only 160 acres of prairie land. That's only 1/4 of a square mile. But the land was free, given by the United States government to the family who lived here and to hundreds of thousands of other families who agreed to live on such land for 5 years and try to develop it. It was all part of a plan called the Homestead Act, endorsed by President Lincoln and passed by the Congress of the United States in 1862. The purpose was to encourage people to move out west and help settle this undeveloped country. And it worked. The railroads got an even more tempting offer. Square mile after square mile of land on either side of new railroad tracks would be given free to companies that would build rail lines into and through this unpopulated part of our nation. During the 1870s and 1880s, 4 transcontinental railroads were built across the prairies and the plains, becoming the supply lines for bringing people west to settle on their homesteads. Here on the prairies of Nebraska, there were no trees or rocks to get in the farmer's way. But that also meant there was no wood or stone with which to build a house. The settlers were forced to use the only thing nature had left them, sod, the top few inches of the endless prairie grass that could be peeled up in large chunks and stacked like bricks. This old sod house has lasted over 100 years. There were tens of thousands of these soddies built by the homesteaders here on the prairies. Built layer upon layer, sod made a remarkable thick and sturdy wall, helping to keep out the winter cold as well as the summer heat. When the farmer could afford it, he bought lumber at the nearest rail center and began building a more permanent wooden house. Inside, the walls of the soddy were usually whitewashed with a mixture of lime and water to help prevent the sod from crumbling so fast. The floor was part wood and part dirt, with a few rugs to help keep the dust down. There were perhaps a few items of furniture that had been brought along in the freighter wagon from back east, including the old stove, one very important fixture. It really served 2 purposes, cooking the food as well as heating the house. The bathroom, of course, was outdoors in the back, except for the bathtub. And since water had to be pumped and carried from a well some distance away, you had a bath about once a week, usually on Saturday evenings to get ready for Sunday church. The electric light had not yet been invented, so each evening the kerosene lamp was lit. When the chores were done, off to bed you went, usually with the younger members of the family holding on to their favorite toy bear. Mother and Father slept down here, the children up in the loft. Bedtime came early, especially on school nights. School, you say? Oh, yes. 100 years ago, boys and girls needed to be educated, too. Only out here on the prairie, school was different. All the boys and girls, regardless of age, were together in the same class, since the school had only one room. They read from the Bible or from a school book called the McGuffey Reader. Their tablet was a gray slate, their pencil a piece of chalk. And yet these students still learned their ABCs, how to read and write, as well as enjoy games like tag and ante-ante over.
Ante-ante over!
Ann! Hi, Sarah. I thought you had to help your pa. I did. We finished planting this morning.
For helping, he let me ride Sabo to school.
Can I ride her after school?
Well, I guess so.
Come on, go. We better not be late. I'll be ready and I'm going to get a drink of water. I beat ya. Sarah, you're always crowding in. You're going to get it. You don't scare me none, Jimmy Wilson.
All right, children, let's quiet down. Anne, you have some catching up to do. I'd like to see you after school for your makeup work.
Yes, ma'am.
Jimmy, you're late again.
But Miss Bishop,
I don't want to hear any more excuses. You'll see me after school.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we only have a week left before most of you go home for spring planting and cleanup chores, so I want to make the most of our time together. Mary, I want you to help Melissa with her reading this afternoon. Henry, I want you to help Tom and Carl with their capital letters. Let them start with their names first. The rest of you, get out your slate boards. We're going to start with sums this morning. And I want you to copy the problem and then write the answer.
What page had you been reading on, Melissa?
I think it was this one. The funny brownies in the page and jumping rope.
All right, let's see if you can read these sentences for me, starting with the word we.
We like to jump, turn, jump, jump. We are playing. I don't know this word.
That word is marbles.
And you mean in the game of marbles?
Yes, the brownies are playing marbles in the picture.
I forgot to look at the picture.
Make your loop a little bigger and then come down like this. Try it again.
I can't get the hang of capitals.
It's just like making a figure eight that's half fallen over to the right.
All right, that's better. Now let's do some oral addition. Franklin,
Yes, ma'am?
add these numbers.
All right. 9 and 8 are 17 plus 7 more is 24 plus 8 is 33. No, 32.
We owe much to teachers like Miss Bishop, who with very little formal teacher training helped young people long ago get their basic education. Some of your grandparents might have gone to a one-room schoolhouse. They were an important part of the early West. So was this invention, the self-regulating windmill. It will adjust itself automatically to the wind coming from any direction. This piece of machinery was bought by homesteaders throughout the Great Plains. It meant that for the first time, underground water, trapped perhaps 30, 50, 200 feet under the land, could be pumped upward onto the ground, providing needed water for crops and for livestock. In fact, many of the early dryland farms suddenly became crop-producing, irrigated farms. 100 years later, water is still important to the farmer on the Great Plains. Only today, the windmills have been replaced by other ingenious devices that not only pump the water from underground sources, but throw it for great distances over a variety of crops. These spigots are like a giant sprinkling system, some turning slowly in a complete circle, automatically irrigating in just hours what was once the entire homestead of the early farmer. A century ago, this land was all prairie, given away to anyone who would take a chance. Today, it's become a rich farmland, the breadbasket of our nation.